What is the notion of trust?
The main thing is that we, as minds in the world, so to speak, right? Minds in bodies, or um, beings in substrate. That there's three kinds of connection. There's a sense of connection to what we would think of as spirit, or connection to what we would think of as divinity. Um, what is our innermost nature? And so there's a kind of clarification of the channel. So when the Greeks were talking about, for example, know thyself, right? That was referring to this notion of who am I? What am I bringing forward? What is the basis of my choice? What is the meaningfulness that I am in response to? What am I ultimately in devotion to? And so, in this sense, we're talking about a profoundness of skill in the integration between what we would think of as surface consciousness and what we would think of as deep consciousness. And so, in this sense, that's a practice. That's a connection and a skill. And that skill by itself is great. It's wonderful and it's helpful and so on. But I wouldn't have it be the only skill. Like the next skill that I think is pretty key is to deepen one's relationship to the world. Right. So, for instance, one of the things that I feel has been particularly helpful to me to even be here to talk about these kinds of things is that I grew up as a woodworker. Right? I grew up as a craftsman. I learned the ways of working with the bones of trees. I mean, there's a sort of beauty and an elegance to that, but on the other hand, there's a deep practicality of that. I mean, you need to know how to operate a saw. You need to know how to operate a chisel. You want to basically be able to work with various kinds of tools and to have a sense as to what the outcomes are going to be. You need to know the nature of the wood. You need to know the laws of physics, what leverage is all about, what kind of glues are going to be good, and so on. So, in this sense, to develop facility of knowing how the world works. By the world, I mean the material world, like the physical world. So learning how to do blacksmithing, or learning how to do stone carving, or learning how to do glass work, or to be able to think about, chemistry, or to think about how to make structures, bridges, and things like that. So fortunately, I've had quite a bit of contact. Of being the kind of curious person that I am, I explored a great number of these areas. I was quite the geek when I was growing up. And so, in this sense, to have deep competence in navigating the physical world, like being able to drive a car or a train or a bus or all those kinds of things, or being able to make things, to build a house or to write a book, but actually to print the book. Can you make the paper? Do you know how to do the binding? Do you have the ability to essentially source the trees from which the wood pulp would be made in the first place? Um, in this sense, developing a level of skillfulness in that particular thing means that, when you give your word that you can do something, you actually can, and you can do it. Right. So there's a sense here of not just being able to predict the future. In a sense, you see clouds in the sky and you know when it's going to rain, or, you kind of can tell, hey, this such a situation might result in this outcome. You're looking at it from a deeply um, competent, embodied point of view. And that would be the second skill. So this is in addition to developing connection with oneself at a sort of spiritual or a physical level of knowing your own body, knowing your own mind, knowing your own spirit. Now you have connection to the world and can bring all of yourself, your inner nature, into the world. So now you're able to do great artistic works, right? But there's a third path. There's a third thing, which is, do you know other people? Can you integrate with the social world? Can you really feel what another person feels? Do you have compassion? Do you have empathy? Can you be in deep and authentic communication with another person? Do you have relationships? Are they healthy relationships? Right. So in this sense, the mystery of the other person is an ongoing discovery, just as much as the mystery of the world and the mystery of oneself. So in this sense, if I if I'm developing skillfulness in all three of these ways, then the final factor, the final factor that applies on each of these particular kinds of things is the degree to which one is ordinated from a surface versus a deep level, the degree to which one is ordinated from um, for my benefit versus for the world's benefit, and the degree to which one is ordinated from, again, my benefit to the benefit of the other. So, in a sense, how altruistic can you be with respect to the well being of the other, the well being of the world, and the deepest levels of oneself? So, in effect, if you're looking at it from like again, this is things that show up in some of the psychological literature, like in the last 25, I don't know, some years ago, some research group basically said that trust was equal to competency multiplied by intimacy multiplied by reliability, all divided by self-interest. So that's how it shows up in, like, if you get online and you look up something called the trust equation, you'll see that equation just as I named it, or some variation very close to it. Um, but if you think about what intimacy is, what competency is, and what reliability is, it's based upon these three connections: connection to deepness of self, connection to deepness of world, and connection to depth of other. And the degree of self-interest would be, where is your choice making basis on these three axes, right? The more that it's oriented towards the surface ego self, the less trustworthy a person is, right? The more that it's ordinated to the deepness of all three of those dimensions, the more that one can genuinely be trusted, right? In the sense of, they're skillful, they're willing, and they're available, right? That if you have all three, skillfulness, willingness, and availability, then it's easy to let go of your holding it and let them hold it, right? So in effect, this notion of trust is I'm describing the skillfulnesses that divide by self-interest, is describing the willingness and the degree to which one is being present in the profound way is the is the availability piece. So if you're basically wanting to treat this as a kind of litmus test, somebody's basically saying, hey, I want to help you. You might ask, if they're saying, hey, I want to help you, then they've already expressed willingness. Now you got to check to see, are they available? Maybe they want to help you, but tomorrow they're going to be on a plane and somewhere else. They're not available, and they may be willing, but and they may even be available. It may be there with you for the next period of time, and then you have to ask: are they skillful? Do they actually know what they're doing? Right? And where does that knowingness come from? Does it come from I know profoundly from where I'm coming from? Do I know profoundly how the world works? And do I know profoundly what the other needs? Then I can actually be of service, right? It's not just some hypothesis anymore, right? There's a kind of attunement that's built into that.